Take a look at these two photos and you'd be forgiven for thinking that they were shot in the 1920s using a vintage camera like this one that used to belong to my granddad. In actual fact, I took these two images just a few weeks ago using a digital mirrorless camera, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can create the vintage look. Welcome to the Photo Genius channel. Hi, Paul here from Photo Genius. Welcome to my channel where I like to post regular photography tutorials. I like to share tips and tricks, occasionally doing gear reviews and sometimes making videos about editing images just like this one. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. Now take a look at these two images. Now one of these images I edited using Lightroom and Photoshop, but the other image was edited on my iPhone using a free app. But can you tell which is which? Now, did you get it right? Let me know in the comments down below and make sure you stick around because I'm going to show you how to create really cool vintage looking photos. So a few weeks ago I was in a place called Cleveland, which is on the Brisbane Bayside. It's a great spot and I've featured it many times in my videos, and the reason I was there was to take photos and test out the Nikon ZFC. Now I was packing up and ready to go when these two amazing old cars turned up and parked right opposite me, and of course I couldn't resist taking some photos, so I grabbed my camera, got out of the car, introduced myself to the drivers, and I started taking some photos. And I wish I had some video to show you as well, but I've got nothing, and that's because the cars were only there for about 2 minutes because it started to rain, and of course with neither car having a roof, the owners of the cars were really keen to get them back home and get them back in the garage. Now at this point I'd like to ask if anyone watching this video lives in Brisbane and happens to know the owner of either of the two vehicles, please get in touch because I'd really love to offer them a framed print. Now what's crazy is I completely forgot I'd even taken these photos until a couple of days ago when I was going through some memory cards, getting ready to clear the cards down. Upon rediscovering the photos, I saved them to Lightroom, I transferred one of the images to my iPhone, and now I'm going to show you how I did the edit. And the first edit we're going to do is just using a smartphone. So this is something anybody could do. And I'm going to be using a free app called Snapseed. You can download Snapseed for free at the App Store or on Google Play for Android. Okay, so let's open up Snapseed. It's a very easy program to work with. Let's open up an image. Okay, so this is one of the images straight out of camera, no editing as yet. Now to use Snapseed, it's really easy. Begin by tapping on where it says Tools. This will give you a menu and there are lots of different options and things you can play with. Today I'm going to show you just the basics. Start with Tune Image, that's always my go-to. Now for menu options, just swipe up and down. To change, left to right. Now there is a handy bar along the top which will increase or decrease depending on which way you swipe, and this is really good for just keeping an eye on how far you're pushing things. I'm going to raise the brightness on this image a tiny bit. I'm then going to go to shadows and push the shadows up as well. See how that really improves the brightness on the trees there and brings out the detail in all the dark areas. I don't want to push that too far either. I'm going to go to highlights and I'm going to bring the highlights down because I want to recover those clouds in the sky. Okay, I'm going to tick there, so that's done. If I touch the image, I can see my before and after. So all we've done firstly is just adjusted the exposure slightly, and I think that already looks pretty good. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want this image to look really old, and there's a couple of things in this image that that don't make it look old, and one of them is the yellow lines on the road. I don't think in the 1920s they would have been there. So I'm going to go to Tools, I'm going to go to Healing, and what I can do is I'm going to increase the size of the image to make it easier. Is I can just go over what I want to remove with my finger, and the software removes it. It's really, really easy to do, and it can be fiddly sometimes, but as you can see, it's simple. Enlarging the screen just makes it easier. You can be more precise with where you are, you know, with what you want to remove and so on. So nearly done. Okay, just check that. So I'll notice some more. Okay, so those yellow lines are now gone. Now there is something else. There's a sign here. Looks like a bus stop sign. Now again, that probably wouldn't have been there in the 1920s. So I'm going to try and remove that as well. Now, this is a bit trickier to do because certain things clone really well. You can see that's not cloned so well there. So you just need to sometimes go over things a few times just to get it right. That looks pretty good. Let's try and get rid of this bus stop sign. So I'm going over multiple times just trying to get it to do a good job. Yeah, nearly there. I think that looks pretty good. If you didn't know there was a bus stop sign there, then you certainly wouldn't know now. Okay, so I'm going to tick to apply those changes. Again, before and after, so you can see the road signs, or sorry, the lines in the road have completely disappeared. And now what I want to do is make it look vintage. Now there's a number of ways you can do this. There is a vintage tool. If I tap on this, I can select from different looks and it will apply a vintage look, but still retain the color. And I really like these. I think if you're looking for a sort of 70s film look, then I think these are absolutely fantastic. I don't want to apply this look, so I'm going to click on the cross. Another handy tool is the Noir tool, which will give the images a sort of vintage look. These are based around film. Again, it's pretty good, but again, it's not the one I want to use, so I'm going to click on the cross. I'm going to use Retro Lux. I really like this. Now, what it does is it applies a look. There's a few different options to choose from. I'm going to just quickly skip through and see which is my favorite. Okay, I think that's it. Now you can adjust this by clicking on the middle icon, and I can do things like scratches, for example. I can increase the scratches so it looks like it's an old worn film. I can decrease. I'm going to add some scratches, so I quite like that. What else can we do? Saturation. Increase or decrease the saturation. I'm going to if I increase the saturation, you'll notice the red on the wheels, the splash of color on the top of the lighthouse there, the green on the trees. If I decrease the saturation, it's going to take those colors out, and I do want it to look, I want a bit of that color but not a much. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to click on the tick icon. Again, this is what we started with, and that's what we got now. And I mean, really, I think I'm almost done. I think that looks really cool. Okay, next tool, vignette. Now, vignette is all about darkening the corners of the image. Now, usually what we do with a vignette is we try and darken the outside of the image. So if I go up and down and look for outer brightness and decrease it, you'll see that it darkens the outside of the image. Photographers often do this to draw the eye to the center part of the frame. But actually, I'm going to reverse this. I want to increase the brightness on the outside of the image. So it actually looks a bit faded as we get towards the edges of the image. I think that adds to the look. I might also go inner brightness and just darken the inner part just slightly, see? Okay, so I really like now the transition. I like that it's really faded on the outside of the image. It really does look now like an old film print. I think I'm pretty much done here with Snapseed. If I wanted to, I could finish this off with a frame. There's a few old film type frames that you can add as well, which is pretty neat. In this case, I don't think I'm going to bother, so I'm just going to click on the cross icon. Yeah, and there you go. So that's my before, and that's my after. That's my vintage image. And that's all done in Snapseed, which again is a free app. To save your finished edit, all you've got to do is hit the export button, bottom right hand of the screen, and choose from the 3 options. I think that you'll agree that for an app that is absolutely free to download, Snapseed is pretty amazing, and I've only shown you a fraction of what you can do with it. Okay, time to move on to the second edit, this time using Lightroom and Photoshop. And if you don't have access to Lightroom and Photoshop and you'd like to give it a go, there's a free trial version that you can download. I've added a link in the description below this video. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom. The first thing I'm going to do is take us into the develop module, and here's where we can do our edit. Now to begin with, let's just make this image a little bit brighter, because a little bit of an underexposed image, done purposely because I wanted to keep that lovely cloud detail. but I think it could be a bit brighter while we're doing our edit. Now, if you watch the edit I did on the iPhone, you would have seen me getting rid of these yellow lines here. And I'm going to do exactly the same with this image as well, because it doesn't make it look very 1920s. But to do this, I'm actually going to jump out of Lightroom now into Photoshop, because Photoshop just has better tools for that type of thing. So I'm going to go Photo, Edit in Adobe Photoshop. Okay, so here we are in Photoshop, and let's get rid of these yellow lines. So let's make the image a little bit bigger so it's easier to do. And there's lots of different tools you can use to do this. The first tool I'm going to use is the spot healing brush. The spot healing brush is very simple. You just brush over the object you want to get rid of, and Photoshop will work its magic. Bang, done. Very, very simple, very easy, and very effective. Now I'm just going to speed this up for you so you don't have to sit and watch me do all of these yellow lines. Now there's also some lines under the cars that I didn't worry about with the iPhone edit, because they would have been a bit fiddly to get rid of. But in Lightroom, I think I can do them pretty easily. Let's try getting rid of this one here. Okay, so look, here I don't think Photoshop's done a great job. Clearly I can see this has been edited. So I'm going to actually choose or change the tool. And now I'm going to go to the patch tool. Let's undo what we just did. The patch tool is great because what you can do is create a patch, so you draw around the object you want to get rid of, then you can move it to different parts of the image, and what you're looking for is an area that will match or is very close to that of the area that you want to, you know, fix, if you like. So there you go, it's done a pretty good job there. If you're wondering why the image looks a bit pixely, it's because we are working at 200%. And again, because this bit can be quite time consuming, I've sped it up. Okay, looking good. Now there's also a bus zone sign that I want to get rid of next. For this I'm going to use another tool. You're going to love this. It's called the clone stamp tool. And what this will do is I can basically clone an area. So the area where the circle is, I'm going to hold down the Option key, and that's going to be my selection. I'm then going to move over to here and just paint in, and it basically clones one area on top of another. Absolutely fantastic, such a useful tool. Okay, now clearly you can see here I've not done a great job, so I'm going to fix that. Let's choose an area over here, paint that in. Good. Job done. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this fence, because over here is an iron fence. Again, not very 1920s, and this is going to be quite fiddly to do because the fence runs behind the vehicle and can be seen through the gaps in the wheels here. So now with Photoshop there's lots of different ways of doing things. Let me show you another way. I'm going to choose the lasso tool, and what this will allow me to do is to create what is called a selection. So I'm drawing around the area that I want to get rid of, like so. Okay, now because I've got my selection, I'm now going to go get the clone stamp tool, shortcut S. So I'm going to grab an area from the bushes over here and just draw it in place, and there you go. Let's get rid of the selection. You'll see. There you go. Now you can see bushes through the gap in the wheel rather than the iron fence. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and get rid of this whole thing. I don't expect you guys to want to watch and stick around and watch this, so I'm going to speed up the video a little bit because this will take a few minutes to do because it's a little bit fiddly, but it's totally worth it. Okay, so I've created my selection. It is quite a large area, so I'm going to press S, make the clone tool bigger, Option key. Now if I get rid of the selection, you are going to see a a bit of a line here, but we're going to get rid of that using the clone tool. Again, all I've got to do really is clone a small area of the bush and then just run along the line and it will totally get rid of it. I'll do the same down here, make the tool smaller, just run along the edge. Yeah, looking good. Okay, I'm going to grab the pathway, run the pathway back in. Okay, done. And again, I'm going to speed things up while I get rid of these other areas here. And there you go, I've completely got rid of the fence. So now I'm going to jump back into Lightroom. All I've got to do is save. Back into Lightroom, the image refreshes. As you can see, all the lines are now gone, the fence is gone. Now we can really start to edit the image. Now, first thing I'm going to do is crop the image because I didn't really want that tree over to the left. So I want a slightly tighter crop. I think that looks pretty good. Now, exposure wise, I'm going to bring the highlights down because I do want to bring some of those clouds back. I want that moody sky. I love that. Fantastic. I'm going to increase the shadows. Okay, looking good. Next, I'm going to turn this image into black and white. And even though it's black and white, I can add a splash of color using the color grading wheels. So what I'm going to do is go to highlights over here. This will affect just the highlights in the image. And I'm going to drag the center marker into the yellow orange zone. So it's going to add some color. If I drag it into the green, it's going to make the highlights green and so on. But I just want that slightly yellowy tint to give it that kind of sepia look. I'm going to do the same with the shadows. Maybe drag it slightly towards the orange. Okay, I love that. Looks really, really nice. Okay, next I'm going to go to Vignette. Now, Vignette is a popular tool for darkening the corners of an image. It can draw the attention of the viewer to the middle of the frame. It's really cool, but what I'm going to do here is actually do the opposite. I'm going to actually increase the outside of the image to give it that faded print look. Yep, loving that. Great. Going to go back up to the top here. Texture, clarity, dehaze. Now these are usually used to sharpen an image and bring out detail, but with film cameras that were around in the 1920s and 30s, they weren't all that sharp. So I'm not going to increase the dehaze, for example. I'm actually going to decrease the dehaze. I'm going to also maybe drop the clarity a bit as well. There you go. So it makes the image look nice and soft. I'm going to push the shadows a bit more, just because I do want the image to have a kind of washed out look to it. Let's go over to the blacks. Okay, good. I think I'm done. So let's press F key and we can look at the full image. Now I think that looks really, really neat. Okay, so there you go. That's how you do a 1920s style vintage edit using Lightroom and Photoshop. Now, if you have a go at creating vintage looking images yourself, I'd really love to see them, especially if you're sharing them to social media. So make sure you tag @PhotoGeniusBrisbane so I can find them. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. I try to put out new videos every single week, so if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss out. If you'd like to support me and the PhotoGenius channel, there's a number of ways you can do that. Give this video a thumbs up, that really helps. Leave a comment, consider sharing the video, and if you want to check out our membership options on Patreon, I've included a link below for more details. All that's left is for me to say thanks for watching. Take care and I hope to see you again sometime soon. See ya. Bye.